heard they checking for me, no one checking on me, so I had to go run up a check. I got the message on me, ain't no flexing on me, my attorney gon' call and collect. Blessings on blessings for me, my successes only made them envious, they got upset. I had to put all their egos in check. I want the money, the power, respect, and I heard you know so-and-so, you not a threat, cause I really know so-and-so, they like my family, so they go pretend that they cool till they bust at your motherfucking chest. I'm getting gutter, my flow been like butter, my check in the bank, they see the number. All of my haters feel one of two ways, really upset or they show some respect. I can't even think about it, I've been up, so read about it, no beat around it, straight to it, no ring around it. You coming for me, we'll see about it, we'll never see it when I get my feet up. 100 meters where I run the fee up, and go from king and nine, I'm on a pia. I had to re-up on a reel, so you stay defeated, and put it back into the bit, cause I don't really need it. I heard they checking for me, no one checking on me, so I had to go run up a check. I got the message on me, ain't no flexing on me, my attorney gon' call and collect. Blessings on blessings for me, my successes only made them envious, they got upset. I had to put all their egos in check. I had to put all their egos in check. You're not entitled to anything else. I get 10 years of this under my belt. Your art isn't art, they don't feel it, and nobody hears it. Initiative stay on the shelf. Your ego done got in the way. It gotta die today. It gotta go. You should be happy I lighten the load. The weight of your arrogance, heavy as stone. I make an appearance, they already know. That chip on your shoulder gon' crumble and fold, yeah. It's not a secret that you have been fearing the shit that I'm on. So you back to the brag and the boast. But I'm in a class of my own. I heard they checking for me, no one checking on me, so I had to go run up a check.
What's good, everybody? Welcome to a very, very, very special edition of Drone Brews. It's a Friday, which we normally don't really stream on Fridays, but here we are streaming on a Friday afternoon. I'm pretty stoked to have a special guest with me today. I have none other than Ian from Mads Tech going to be joining us today, so definitely pretty cool. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and just jump right over to our secondary window, our secondary screen, bring Ian right into the mix here. So let me go ahead and do that. See if I can.
Hello.
It's Mr. Eddie Nunez.
How are you doing?
There it is. What's going on, man? Good to see you.
Yeah, morning or afternoon, whatever it is for you.
Whatever
it's
it is.
Here, so we're not too big. Yeah.
Well, I'm drinking coffee, so it's definitely the morning that I'm drinking
I've
coffee.
got tea.
Okay.
So I've gone for English tea.
Cheers. So it's been a while, 24 hours since the release. I think we've gotten a chance to absorb everybody's takes, videos. We've got a chance to take a look at all the comments and all the feedback from the community and all the groups. So, Ian, what's your takeaway so far?
It's always emotional at DJI launch, and like you probably can. I've been following them a long time, and you sort of go, you have that initial excitement, although some of that gets burned off by the leaks and all of that stuff, and you sort of go. Often what I look for is what isn't said in a DJI release than what is, because that's where the interesting stuff is. But I think the product was great. I think where my frustration lied really quick was with sort of the bundle and that. And then there was this massive fall off of, wait a minute, we've got a new goggle here that people are screaming for, yet it's sort of like, but you can't have that if you're a proper FPV, or not proper, sorry, wrong term, DIY FPV flyer.
Right. Yeah, I mean it is a letdown, but it's not shocking.
No,
when I set my expectations for a release, I sort of at the end of the day, like, these major companies are always in business to be in business, right? So they're going to always do the things that are best for their business. And I think the general FPV community, they're so used to dealing with these smaller companies that are very grassroots oriented, Fat Shark for the longest time, very grassroots oriented. You've got guys, HD0, very grassroots oriented, very small companies in comparison to DJI. So they listen to the community, because if they piss those people off, they don't have anybody else. But then you have DJI that just can sort of do what they want.
They'll sell more Mavics in an hour than probably Fat Shark have ever sold FPV goggles. And that's
exactly.
And those, you and I have been around the ready to fly drone a lot longer than most of the FPV community. That is, I've straddled both worlds for a very long time. And look, if you're a Mavic user, your old remote not being compatible, it's not even something you think about. It was only when we sort of added the smart controllers and things like that, people started to go, well, hey, I want to be able to carry that investment forward. But before that, it wasn't even a thing. You bought your drone, you got your remote, you got your batteries, and you cracked on with it.
Right. So So the DJI FPV system, the digital system's been out since late 2019.
Yeah, it's a
Late
long time now.
2019. So it's been a long time. And I'm going to play devil's advocate here because a lot of the complaints are coming from people that are mad that as of right now, these do not have any backwards compatibility to the original air units. So I asked the first question when I was able to be a part of this release. The very first question I asked my rep, I said, okay, great. You got these new goggles. And I know people are going to ask, are they going to be compatible with the air units? And he first said to me, he said, hey, I don't know that answer. Let me reach out to my engineer and see what they say, and I'll get you some answers. 'Cause I had a bunch of questions, right? Obviously, all these releases, you have questions.
Yeah.
And then he came back and pretty much big old leathers, these will not be compatible with the FPV air units, the air units. So basically Gen 1 digital. So my takeaway from that was he didn't say as of right now, there wasn't like any glimmer of hope that eventually these would be compatible with that. It was pretty much these will not be compatible. So I'm taking it as these are not going to be compatible. And I know like there's a guy showing this screenshot, but that people have to understand when you are reaching out to support online like DJI has 100 reps responding to people on Twitter. That is just a tier 1 person. Like you said yesterday in your live stream, they don't know any better. They're just going to give you whatever to save face, but they're not going to like, from a business standpoint, if there is new air units, which we've seen leaked photos of air units, right?
Yeah, we're pretty certain that's going to happen. 99%.
Yeah, if there's photos, it's happening.
Yeah, it's C certified, so and FCC certified, which means they've paid to go to that level of certification. So it's going to happen. It's when.
And here's the thing: like I've seen like people claiming that DJI needs to do the right thing in this situation, but what's really the right thing? There has to be a reason, and I know people right away want to go towards greed, and they want to claim that it's essentially DJI wanting to be greedy. But, I come from the software world and I look at things from a perspective of somebody who is developing software, releasing software, and looking at hardware and what that hardware was capable of doing in terms of running new software. And you have to remember that these air units came out 3 years ago. 3 years ago, there wasn't a digital system on planet Earth. There wasn't digital FPV. Up until that point, everybody flew analog. And the cool thing about analog is it's obviously, multi-use and it's cross-platform, which analog goggles can connect to any VTX, and it's very sort of open source, right? But digital was not. And we have this version 1 hardware trying to connect to newer hardware running different protocols, and it may not be the same.
No, and that's, I think, as you say, there is two elements to this. There's been a bit of a, FPV has had to learn that digital means fragmentation, and that's inevitable. That is the world we live into. We're used to it in, we've seen it with DVD, Blu-ray versus HD DVD. We've had this over the years, and normally what happens is one thing becomes a standard and the world moves on. And that's how it happens. In FPV, it's a bit different. What we're going to end up with is 2 or 3 players is where we're at today. DJI, who've been, the easiest term to use is they kicked the doors in on the industry in 2019 and just went, hey, we had Fat Shark sort of saying, we've been working with the company and we got this little thing. And those of us who knew about that were like, okay, that's a long way off. And DJI just went, oh, by the way, we got this. And I remember, I beta tested the first system. I remember when it arrived. I remember opening the box. And if anyone's ever beta tested for something with DJI, it doesn't come in pretty packaging. It doesn't come in nice manuals. You just get a box with bubble wrap and something in the bottom. Often you might not even know what it is. And you open it. And I remember putting it on the bench. And the first thing I did was literally power it up on the bench and just do that with my hand in front of the camera. Just look at the latency. And I literally fell off my chair because the instant thing was, oh my God, that is. I can't even see it. Everything before that in digital had been put your hand on the table, count to 3, and then you'd see it move. So they have literally moved the needle on that. And I think the problem is now we've seen so much development and we've seen these new goggles that are everything everyone wants. They're OLED. they're smaller, they're OLED, they've got nice folding antennas. I think everything else is a by the by, Wi-Fi, all of that stuff. They're the same factor of goggles that we used to have in, and the
Right.
people who've on the current system go, I want to swap these massive things for that, and I think that's where the frustration is.
And that really is like, I didn't realize how handy this design was until this weekend when I was traveling. Like when I usually travel, I have to like make compromises for what gear I'm going to bring, but having these and a smaller controller and just it was a very, very portable. It was actually a pleasure to bring one bag that I had a Mini 3 in, I had this in, I had all the things in that bag, which made it like, and you know what? I was wrong. These do come off, by the way. I didn't realize
they
it.
do.
Yeah, they
I think
come
you have to
off.
give them a good pull.
You gotta
didn't they?
give
They're
them
not as simple.
yeah. Your natural reaction is you want to twist them, but they just sort of pop in there. So I was like, okay, that's actually cool. So I accidentally popped them off the other day, and I was like, oh shit, I was wrong. But you know, by then it's already filmed. It's like, fuck it, anyways. It is nice to have those smaller goggles. Like, trust me, I would love for these to work with my existing Air units, but I don't see that happening. And I think that when it comes down to things, I think that DJI prides experience, the experience that the end user gets over all things. So if there's something, and I'm sure they've probably tried to test this, I'm sure there's something there, something removed from these goggles to get them down to this size. Because we look at the V2 goggles and the V1 goggles, they're massive. Why are they massive? You know, it's like what is sitting inside of those?
Yeah, and what DJI have done at their best here is package. You know, if we look at what DJI is at their best at, it's product packaging. If you take a Mini 3, or actually a Mini 2 is the better term, because that was basically a Mavic Pro in a smaller platform. They managed to take that platform and shrink it and improve it. It had OcuSync, it had a better camera. And what DJI are ultimately amazing at is packaging products. Software, sometimes that needs some work, but the hardware is there is never a DJI Pocket product I've never picked up and thought, wow, this feels quality. In fact, the term I've often used for DJI is Sony. It reminds me of how Sony used to be. You pick something up and it's like, it feels weighty, it feels quality. And I haven't tried the new goggles, but I'm expecting them to be the same. It isn't as simple. It's probably worth me saying this because I'm involved in a lot of stuff in the background, and something that is clear is it isn't as simple as DJI flicking a switch to do this.
Correct.
I've seen some comments of people going,
it's not.
They're choosing. This software on this goggle is very similar to what they did on the FPV drone, but it is an entire rewrite. We know this from the hacking community. And it's entirely new. It's been completely rewritten.
It is from
new.
The ground up. There's no traces of. So when you look at the V2 goggles, you can switch from the FPV system, which is, you know, obviously the digital system we're used to the FPV drone. So now in these goggles, when you go to the switch menu, it actually asks you, do you want to switch your aircraft? So that leads me to believe that these goggles eventually may connect to maybe the Mavic drones. And, you know, anything with OcuSync 3 protocol, it could potentially connect to, because it's asking you to switch aircraft. Now, why would they have it to where that would be in the software if there wasn't an intention for it to pair with other aircrafts? Now, the FPV drone, that is definitely a possibility, but I'll even say the telemetry and everything is different. Now, when I updated the FPV drone to the new beta firmware, the original, the OG FPV drone, now I'm getting the telemetry, I'm getting all the readouts and the same information that I'm getting on my Avata. But again, if you have an FPV drone, you have to switch. It's sort of a convoluted process to switch it back and forth.
Yeah, and that is it. And so we do know that basically it does appear DJI have done all the groundwork for support for the Mini 3, the Mavic 3, and the FPV drone with these new goggles. That groundwork is in there. We can see that. What isn't there is support for the old system. So this would be like saying to Sony on the new PlayStation 5, we want you to also allow it to run all of the old PlayStation 4 games and write all of the software to do it. This isn't a trivial task, even though what we're asking for. You know, it's a big task.
And what's ironic is they didn't necessarily screw people over in a sense in that regard. Like people are like, oh, they screwed me over. No, they didn't. They actually gave you an out. They gave you an out. Last year when they released the V2 goggles. Little did we know that those were now going to be capable of working with OcuSync 3. So if you have
Yeah,
the V2 goggles and they come out with a new air unit, your V2 goggles will no doubt work with the new air units because they're capable of that OcuSync 3 transmission, which is obviously where they're going. I will tell you, in flying the Avata, and I was next to a friend of mine who's flying the digital FPV system. Now, he was on 50 megabits. He was on 50 megabits. I was on, the Avada's 50 megabits OcuSync.
yeah.
And his signal on the 50 megabits on the digital system was actually impeding on my transmission.
Okay.
It was actually like I was getting stutters and I was getting like really bad blockiness to the point where I was like, hey, because I was way out over like on a ridge, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I flipped it into normal and I said, hey, can you bring it back and just shut shut everything off? I want to see something.
Yeah.
Soon as he shut everything off, the blockiness and that interference
Just
went
cleared
away.
down. Yeah.
But what was weird was he was flying the FPV drone. We were both flying. He was flying FPV drone. I was flying the Avata. We were chasing one another, and I had no problems with any sort of interference. So whatever's happening between the original FPV system and the new transmission, there is definitely some sort of intermingled things there. So, but I don't ever see it going to be where they're going to make that backwards compatible. Not from a business standpoint, anyways.
It's really a want. No one can complain about this. As you say, to be absolutely fair, V2 users have been thrown a massive bone here. If you're a V2 user, you could literally go out, buy an Avata and a remote, and you're ready to go. Look, there are wins here for those people. V1 users, we've had them since 19. None of us can complain. DJI haven't ended the current system. It is still available. There are concerns, but that is always
there's still nothing better than
V1.
The only person that can beat DJI right now in the digital space, and I'll take this comment to the bank, is DJI. I mean, the Avatar 100%. System is a good attempt. I think it's second best as of right now in the digital world, and they will get better over time. But they're not where this company is right now, and they don't have that manufacturing prowess to even.
And this is it. Someone said, I remember when the FPV system launched, and someone went, DJI came out the door with an FPV system from the start, and I was like, well, hold on. Believe it or not, the FPV system was DJI's 7th digital wireless system. For those on the standard drone side, we had Lightbridge, we've had OcuSync 1, OcuSync 2. So as you say, DJI have had a very long time to play at this, and it's easy to think, they're very good, and they are amazing at what they do, but they have so many years of experience being able to deliver it. And it is interesting you mentioned the Avatar system, because Avatar's at least 12 months off where it needs to be. At least 12 months where it stands today.
I think here's what I think when it came down to like the Avatar system, not to detract from what we were talking about. I think that it was a knee-jerk reaction because, again, with Caddx being so close, Walksnail and Caddx being so close to one another, it's hard for me to believe that in China, these representatives didn't know what each other's cards were. You know what I'm saying? It's like they're playing poker and they're playing with the cards face up. They can see each other's hands, so they know what everybody's playing. So I think the knee-jerk reaction was, we have to get this system out before this other system drops. And I think, as far as air units go, I'm thinking, they're going to let this release simmer. We have, it's August, September, October. I could see it dropping like November. New air units dropping November, because that gives time for the Christmas rush. It just makes sense, from a shipping standpoint.
I think. Yeah, and I think there's one thing that's sort of not worrying me actually, but there is something DJI could do which would actually change the whole situation a little bit. And we know there's an air unit coming. We know certain things about that air unit. I don't want to go into how we know, but we know. And it is very much what we're seeing with the Avata drone. It's going to have Rocksteady. It's going to have much of that features you're seeing in the drone in the standalone air unit. So it's going to be that combination of action camera and FPV camera in one. Problem is that's going to come at a cost. It's not going to be $130, $140, $150. There is talk of it being upwards of $250. I think if DJI also released a standard air unit alongside that, without, say, Rocksteady and all of the magic, right? And just went, we're not bringing backwards compatibility, but we're going to give you 2 options on the new system. If you want to stay with the old system, so be it. And you know, that can fade into dust. There's enough ear units out there to go for the next 5 years.
And that's
fine.
And they could easily brand one as, you know, air unit and air unit light, because you just remove some of those features, and that would make more sense than, like, let's say a Caddx Vista. In my mind, is that if you took features away, that would indicate sort of a light version, but that's what I can see them doing. I see they're trying to really take aim at GoPro and basically make this all inclusive. You know, we don't know what that all inclusiveness will look like until we get those in our hands, but it's definitely going to happen. It's definitely going to be with these goggles. I mean, these goggles are I like them. I'm getting crazy light leaks. Even if I take my hat off, people are like, well, it's because your hat's well, my hat doesn't impede on where it's coming to my face. You know what I'm saying? Like,
no, okay.
It doesn't impede. The problem I'm having here, Mads, is like right here. You see how, like, I have a narrow face, and if you have a narrow face, you're gonna have this sort of gap right here.
On the side there.
Yeah.
Is it a better fit than the V2? Because the V2 was very bad.
Yeah.
Let's be realistic.
Realistically, with the stock foam, these are a better fit. So glass half full, these are a better fit with stock foam. But if you add the actual foam to the V2 goggles, just have a much more comfortable fit. Now, I'm sure somebody's going to produce foam like that. It's going to happen. And I'll be there buying it.
So we're in the same position that we're going to need foam for them, whatever we do. Yeah, exactly.
You're gonna need real foam.
You know, I know you fly the Orcas and stuff like that, and when you do put on a different set of FPV goggles that are like black, you know, they completely seal around your face. You're like, oh my god, what have I been flying?
I'm spoiled with the Orcas. The Orcas just are like, you're immersed with the Orca goggles. Like, I mean, you're just. I would have loved. Field of view. I would loved to see, you know, like, that would have been cool. Like, you know, Orca wanted to have an FPV system, right? They wanted to have a digital system. It would have been cool to see DJI partner with manufacturers like that to put their digital system in that form factor, because the form factors are relatively the same. And they obviously have their ergonomics down. The ergonomics, that how it fits multiple faces, Orca has just nailed it. So it would have been awesome to see.
It is. The goggles look interesting. You know, I'm hoping to get my hands on them in the next couple of days. I think, people can't complain. I think there's some stuff DJI could do to quash the situation. I'd have no problems being told, look, we're going to release 2 parts of a system. One light, which is just the camera, which is going to give you amazing video quality, but you're not going to have all the bells and whistles. But that's what we've got now, but better video. And then you can have this combination unit if you want it. And sorry, we're going to end the old system, but it's 3+ years old. We've just dumped 100,000 units onto the market anyway from manufacturing. There's going to be no problems with this in the future. No one can really complain about that. I think the problem is it almost feels like we're being backed into this expensive solution, and that's probably where people are a bit concerned.
You know, and I get it, and I get it that it is expensive, but you know, like, the way I rationalize expenses by needs, wants, you know, and like must-haves. Like, if you're somebody who is doing work professionally, none of this is really a must-have. What you have is already probably going to be working out just fine. If you're somebody who's looking for this for a new hobby and you don't have anything, then this is a great option to go with. But if you're somebody who's already in the hobby and you're sort of caught in between all these different systems, that's where it gets a little harder. I think too, you know, considering how they have these bundles are sort of confusing. They are confusing, but it's not. It's very FPV-like, though, in my opinion, because when you get into FPV and you start building drones, you're going to buy things a la carte. And because you're buying them a la carte, you're going to have to sort of make your own bundles, essentially.
Yeah, I've got a bit of a bone about the bundle, the main one at the moment,
which is the 1388.
No, it's not the cost. It's the fact that I'm being forced to take DJI's e-waste. That's where my complaint is at the moment. And what I mean by the e-waste is the motion wanker. Controller. You know,
let's just be real. The motion wanker is just, like, for me, it's such a freaking gimmick. I don't like it. I don't like it, and I make no qualms about it.
I get it. I do get it for people. I get it that the Best Buy crowd, the Argos crowd in the UK, you won't know. It's just like a big retailer.
I know who Argos
They'll go,
is.
oh, that's cool. Yeah, you know, Argos. Well, they've leaked enough DJI stuff, so yeah. You know, I get it for that crowd. But the problem is, this feels like DJI have gone, we've got 10 shipping containers worth of these remotes that we haven't shifted. We're going to force people into buying it unless they want to buy the other remote separately. So they're giving a bundle where you can buy the drone on its own, or you can buy it with that remote, but they're not giving you the option of buying it with the other remote, or you can't buy the drone, the goggles, and that remote separately. So if I want those goggles, I have to buy that bundle, and that's where my complaint is right now.
And that is a valid complaint. That is a valid complaint. But I also see it from the point where I think like they're looking at it as, all right, the vast majority of people that may be purchasing this probably have the FPV drone. But I don't think what DJI accounted for was a lot of people sold the FPV drone because it was terrible. It was terrible as far as the camera goes, and it took forever for them to get the flight dynamics corrected. And then after they get the flight dynamics corrected, okay, you're touting this as an FPV drone. You're making it seem like it's this freestyle monster when it's a flying fucking Humpty Dumpty. It wasn't a freestyle quad by any stretch of imagination, and it wasn't something that could be used cinematically unless if you were willing to take the risk of putting a GoPro on top. I mean, that was the only way to do it, which sucked.
And you had all of the compromises and none of the benefits then, and that was the problem.
Right. You had it was just it's a weird to me it still signifies their weirdest release. But you have Avada Pro combo, which is $1388, which comes with the motion controller 2, the new goggles, which are pretty expensive, $759 for the goggles, the Avada and the battery. Then you have the Avada Smart Fly combo, which is motion controller, Avada, and V2 goggles. And then you could just buy the Avada with no RC. So I actually bought a second Avada because I really do. I love it, and I want to spare because I know what's going to happen. I'm going to break this, and then I'm going to have to wait to get parts for it. And when I say break it, I'll probably break the ducts. I feel like it's pretty strong, but I'll definitely be breaking ducts on this though, for sure.
But that means on a day's flying, and look, if you look at the Avata on its own, do you get a battery with the drone when you buy it on its own? Do you get a single pack?
You do get a battery. You get a battery.
So if you take the price of the battery, you got to take the price of the battery out. You're actually getting a bloody bargain, and that's the thing. So it does make sense. It's just for me, the frustration is I don't want that remote controller. I would happily have paid £50 more to have the other controller on the bundle, even though they're listing them both at the same retail price on their website. I would have been happy to have got screwed intentionally on that, yet they're not even giving me the option. And what I end up having to do is buy the bundle and then e-waste. And it is literally going to become e-waste.
And what's ironic now is because everybody has sold their controllers, there is no control. If you go to the website, it's out of stock. The controller, this controller here is out of stock. And it was funny. I'm walking around the DroneWorks warehouse this morning, right? And I'm like, I'm like, holy fuck, we got a shit ton of these controllers sitting around from the FPV drone because we people were crashing the FPV drones. And what we were doing was we were just shipping out FPV drones. So we have V2 goggles and all these fucking controllers sitting around the shop. And I'm like, I told Zach, I said, you should just sell the controllers because you can't get them anywhere. Sell the controllers. I mean, what were you going to do? What were you going to do with them before? He wasn't going to do anything with them before. They were just sitting there. I mean, I dropped this one. I was just going to grab another one because I cracked this one. But I said, we should just sell the controllers because they're just basically, they're our waste from the FPV drone because people were crashing it and they would just buy the drone. They didn't need the controller. It's created such a clusterfuck.
I do wonder if DJI have done that on purpose even for themselves, whether they've got, but no, if they had a bunch of controllers left, they'd just bundle them in. Or unless it's been feedback from their dealer network or something, because we've got all this stock, any chance, I don't know. It just feels an odd one. And look, I think the motion controller has its place. I think there are people who will love it. I think that makes sense. What I don't like is being forced into that option without any other option. And look, in 3 months, they'll give us every option you want. Let's be realistic. Sure. This is all about clearing stock on day one.
Yeah, I mean, this is them creating a hype, creating a demand. It's no different than what Apple does. I mean, quite literally, they are a carbon copy footprint of what Apple does on day one releases. They create this pre-order, they create this hype. Everybody jumps at the FOMO of not being able to get the product. It goes out of stock, and everybody puts it on the reminders or does the pre-orders, and they're just, I get it. And I don't get mad at them for it because I get it from one business person to another. I understand the need, I understand the hustle, but
Yeah.
you know, but that's I understand it. I'm not going to get mad at it. You just got to be able
No.
to decipher it.
I think DJI is also in a transition period. And Apple had this period where Apple was a company that made DIY computers, and then at
Yeah.
some point Apple grew up. And there's actually a really, really good interview of Steve Jobs. It's not it's when he came back to Apple, and he's on stage, and they dumped a load of old product when he came back because they were losing crap tons of money.
Right,
And one
right.
developer basically just says to him, "Who are you to make these decisions?" And he just stood, and it is one of the best responses from anyone in business you'll see, because he doesn't react. He stops, he pauses for about 30 seconds, and he says, "Look, we're going to get stuff wrong. We're not going to get it right. We're making some decisions. Some people will like it, some people won't, but at least we're making some decisions, and we're going to move on." And DJI is transitioning from, well, they've already transitioned. They were a DIY company, and we're used to them being quite small and thing. They're now like Apple. As you said earlier about getting info out of customer service, it's like walking into the Genius Bar and asking them what the spec of the new iPhone is
Right.
asking DJI support about future support on the FPV system. It's
Right.
it's pointless.
It's a moot point, because
Yeah.
we're not going to get, we're not going to get the true answer, and demanding things like I laugh, like, reading a lot of, not really forums. I see the Facebook groups, but seeing
Yeah.
the demands of people, it makes me laugh, because it's like, how entitled are you to think that you can tell a company what they can and can't do? Like, I hate that. Like, if you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to show you that I absolutely can do something, and you're just going to piss them off that much more. The reality is, at the end of the day, they are not looking for the traditional FPV pilots. They don't want traditional FPV pilots. There's not enough of us.
No.
But what there is enough of is people that are flying a Mavic that may not be able to understand enough to fly FPV, or never took the time to really learn it, but they just want they want the sensation of flying. Doesn't matter what they get out of it. They just want the sensation. And then to be able to take this Avata and, throw it in standard mode, throw it in the sport mode, and get a similar flight experience. It doesn't have to be the same as some of our great pilots that we've seen, but it's a similar enough experience to where they can be happy with it. And maybe it's enough to flip that person into, buying the next, whatever their next FPV invention would be.
And interestingly, if we put all of this aside, I actually believe they have a very good product here. From everything I'm hearing, if it's something we talked about the potato earlier, the nickname for the DJI FPV drone, it had many flaws. Something I've picked up in all the reviews is I'm not convinced there is any major flaws with this product at all. And in fact, there's a lot of people thinking this is going to be really handy for what they do.
I think it's really handy. And I'm going to be completely real with you. I have looked high and dry for flaws in this system, and to be nitpicky, the things that I don't like about it are just silly, and it's just me being super, super critical on the product. I mean, okay, what I don't like, okay, it's plastic. All right, but if we really think about it and we look around at other whoops of the same size, there are a lot of plastic whoops for about $300, $400. iFlight is notorious. The ProTech line of drones is basically plastic with a carbon fiber frame. And you have very unreliable electronics at the heart of it. So, I looked really high and dry for it. The only thing I don't really like too much is the return to home system on this, because it will fuck you sometimes. Like, I'm in a house, I'm doing a fly through in a house, and I said to myself, all right, we're going to film some B-roll. So I'm telling my buddy, I said, we got to get B-roll of this in the house. So we start filming this, and the fucking thing started returning to home in this 2-story house. So now it's up pegged in. It's pegged against the ceiling. It's trying to go up to 1,000 feet. And I'm like, I'm holding its stick down, and I'm like, I'm under there like this. I'm like, if it drops, and finally it recognized it recognized the commands after about 30 seconds that, okay, I got to come back down. So I started thinking to myself, I'm like, all right, the next time I do a fly through, I'm going to set it to just hover. If it, just hover. So you got to be a little more mindful of that. Obviously, the goggles, there's some imperfections with the goggles. I'm not a fan of this little whirly cord that they have there. Like, I don't like that. I'm not a fan of that.
It's small stuff, though, isn't it? This isn't.
It's nitpicky. It's nitpicky. When the FPV drone had a lot more you know, had a lot more flaws that you just didn't like. I mean, I feel like they at least thought about, they were more thoughtful about who is going to be using this, what this is for. We have gyro information now, which is amazing. It's amazing to stabilize this with gyro flow. We have a much more capable tune. Like the tune straight out of the box, I would say rivals my squirt. Like the way it flies, the characteristics of it is just really comfortable and confident.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a lot to really like there. I mean, build quality aside, manufacturer aside, people will hate DJI just to hate DJI. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, it is what it is.
Everything there's nothing I've seen about the drone where I've been put off. That's the interesting thing. There's, you know, I've looked at some stuff and thought, I don't know if I need that, but that's not because there's anything in the drone that's put it off. There's me balancing, going, well, I've got a Cine Whoop and a GoPro. I can do that stuff. Do I need this to do that stuff? Not, well, I can't do that or that. And I've spoke to a lot of commercial operators and people on 107s and stuff the last few days, and they're all going, man, I want it. We're going to be flying this indoors. We're going to be using it on real estate. We're going to be using this all the time.
What? It's the confidence. It's the confidence of the transmission. So I did a test where I compared this to my Shendrone Squirt, and I tried to do it apples to apples, fly the same path, and just see how they interacted with the, you know, the environment that they were in. And this just was, I would say, at least 80% better in that same environment as far as transmission. There was a lot more confidence at a further distance. So for the guys that are looking to do those one-take videos where they have to go at a distance, you're not going to have to worry about this not being able to maintain transmission. The transmission, when I say it, is rock steady. It's crazy. And, you know, when we talk about range, because people are like, do a range test. Well, it's not that simple with this. It's not that simple.
Yeah.
This is not meant to go 200, 300 feet in the air. It has these ducts, which are going to, you know, it's going to get blown around. In high winds, you're not going to fly this. This is very specific. This is very specific for low altitude proximity. So you got to understand that. And to go 1,700 feet at 3 feet high off the ground, I think is impressive.
With the gyro data, because this is a huge thing as well. So is something I haven't done, is that recorded all of the time in all of the modes, rock steady on and off and everything, Ken? Is that regardless, the gyro data in the footage? No, it's not. And I made that mistake already. So you have to be EIS off, and you have to have it. You cannot have it in ultra wide. You have to have it in wide. So I even thought, I said, well, maybe gyro flow isn't calibrated for ultra wide. So I made a lens profile, and that didn't work. So you have to be in the wide data. Now with the mount we created, you could fly like your Action 2 if you wanted on top of here, put it in ultra wide, and then just use the data from the Avada to stabilize it. You could do it that way, but it's weird. You can't fly 4x3 either and get gyro information. So I really don't understand that either. Why you can't fly 4x3. I'm a 4x3 flyer. Yeah. And I think it's interesting because I like to, what probably your mount's going to be really good for is I can see a lot of people putting it on and flipping the camera opposite way to get that rear footage as well. Oh, yeah, because you can get some really cool stuff backwards. You really can. Yeah, and that's going to be nice on that aircraft as well, which it gives you a lot more options. I think they've done a great job. I think this drone makes sense. Something you said earlier, the FPV drone never made sense. You know, I remember the marketing for the FPV drone, and it was like Mavic flyers, and you're thinking it was too much for the average Mavic flyer. I remember one of my friends who's a Mavic flyer bought it, and he's like, I've tried it, I like it. He said it flies a lot like a Mavic. I want to put it in manual mode, and he just went, I'm never doing that again. Yeah. You know, it was just because it could shift. Let's not pretend it couldn't move. It could absolutely move. Oh, it was fast. It was fast. Yeah. It was incredible. And it was probably too much. That was the problem. And okay, but as you say, that didn't have the proximity safety. That didn't have, it was too big. You know, I was looking at your footage. You were flying through the trees and you're looking at gaps and going, I can hit that. Yeah, I can hit that. It's a weird, and you wouldn't do that thing. With your No, I would never do that. I feel like this to me is like, it has a purpose. It has a really unique purpose that I was sort of like, all right, I really like this. And the first time I flew it through the woods and it wasn't breaking up and I was able to see every little branch, every little piece of scraggle, I was sort of like, okay, holy shit. And I was looking at the camera and I'm like, I remember the first time, like that first video I did, I was just like, holy shit. Like, and then, you know, pushing it out there. And mind you, there's a building in between me and the drone, and I'm not breaking up normally. And I've flown that spot several times, that little abandoned driving range. And I mean, I fail safe back there. And when I say if you go down, it's gonna be hard to find. I mean, it's the high grass.
and I fail-safe back there with the FPV drone, or not the FPV drone, but the digital system, just because I lost video,
Yeah.
you know, and you go down in the grass, so it happens.
Does she, when she loses signal, does she beep?
Yeah,
Like the other
yeah,
drones? She
you
does.
you can set it up to where it beeps. I actually, it's a funny story. I was flying at this park, filming right where I was doing the water, and I came around a corner, and I must have been in between a lot of trees facing the opposite
Yeah.
way, and I was probably about, I want to say about 1,200 feet, and I started losing video. It went down to like 5, and then it went red. And I'm
Okay.
like, fuck.
Yeah.
And I didn't hit return to home. I was in manual, and I must have just went down. I went down in some branches, and I couldn't find it. So
Okay.
you just turned the beeper on, and it just started beeping, and you know, I was able to locate it. So that was pretty cool.
Nice.
And it's loud. It's loud. It actually
Yeah.
scared the shit out of these ladies walking their dog, because it was in the bushes, so you couldn't see it.
Yes, so you couldn't see it. It's just a
So,
noise coming out of there.
it's just
Yeah,
a
and I think
noise.
I'd probably be looking at, I think there's some mods, you know, hopefully we can get something like a traditional FPV beeper on there, which works when the battery flips.
Yeah.
One of the big problems is I did see in Nerk's crash, they pushed the battery, which is going to happen. It happens in all FPV crashes. He lost the battery, and I think hopefully there might be a nice little simple mod where we can put a basic beeper on that. If the power drops, we'll be able to find it. I can't think of anything I don't like about the product. As I said,
They made
and
it
when I was
very
watching it,
repairable too. They made it very
Yeah.
repairable. I was able to
parts.
take this apart. At least the ducts off, in about 15 minutes. You could take the ducts
Okay.
off. The antennas, so you have antennas. This is an antenna, and this is an antenna. So you have these covers
Okay.
here. So once you take this off here, this just snaps right off, really super easy, this
Yeah.
sensor. And then you have an antenna here and an antenna here. And then it basically routes in channels. And you take it out, and then you pull the duct off with, I think it's like 8 screws, and that's it. And then you can replace the ducts, put your new ones in, and then you're good to go, and you're back up operational. This top camera plate, this guard here,
Yeah.
is also really super easy to replace, and actually is
Yeah.
built like a brick shithouse, surprisingly,
Yeah.
for the plastic. So I was pretty shocked about it.
Something that, because I know you do a lot of 3D printing and stuff as well, and it might, one of the thoughts I've had is looking at the bottom there, it might be
Yeah.
worth coming up with like a bumper or protector for the VPS system on the bottom, because that isn't being sold as a part at the moment either. So if there's any
I looked
heavy
at
damage
that.
on that,
I've been looking at that, trying to make something that maybe goes around it. I'm just been really
Yeah.
mindful of the way. I mean, we did do these ducts for it, so we have basically crash guards. So if you hit something, instead of
nice.
hitting it hard, this is TPU, so this will compress a little bit.
Oh,
And
nice. So they're like
and
little hoops. I
yeah,
can see through them. Yeah.
and it's all, and there's no tools. It's toolless. So if you don't want to fly with it, you can pull them off. If you want to fly with them, you
Nice.
can, you can pop them on and off really easily. And we actually designed them to the contour of the duct. It's hard to see, but it
Yeah.
actually goes with the contour. It adds about 10 or 11 grams, give or take,
Okay.
but not enough to really affect the overall flight performance, and doesn't really do anything as far as the battery goes. So like for me, flying this inside of a house, I like that, because
Yeah.
if I hit a customer's wall, I don't
It's
want
not
to
going to mark it.
I don't want to scuff the wall. I don't want to scuff
I
the
was
wall.
literally about to say that. When you're saying it, I'm thinking indoors it's going to stop it scuffing stuff. And yeah,
Yeah.
exactly that. That's a
Yeah,
great idea.
you start scuffing things up pretty easily in close proximity. And people have asked
Yeah.
too, well, how does it do with the GPS indoors? And I can
Yeah.
honestly say it has to be relying heavily on this vision position sensor,
Yeah.
because indoors, no GPS, it flies perfect. It flies
Yeah.
perfect. I mean, I have no issues with it. It doesn't wander. That was pretty much the thing that shocked me the most. And I know a lot of pilots that usually do these walkthroughs, they're like upset. Oh, this is
Yeah.
going to impede on us. And the thing to remember is, these pilots that are doing these walkthroughs and creating these one takes, you can make technology do whatever, but you can never replace a pilot talent, or a pilot's
No.
common sense, or composition of shots. So no matter
No.
what, it's never going to replace what you guys do. So like, I don't know why they were getting all upset. Like, there's so many talented people that do these amazing one takes, do these real estate videos, and this will never replace that. Even though it made
No.
it easier, it's never going to replace that.
And look, the price isn't bad. Something I was looking at this morning. I was looking at, for if you're new in FPV, what are DJI charging for the full kit over there, Ken, in the US? What are
It's
they?
like the full kit right now. It's $13.88 for the full kit.
Yeah, but that's not bad. If you look at
It's
Rotor Riot, a full Cine Whoop on Rotor
yeah,
Riot is $1,500. Get FPV, I've
yeah,
checked today. It's about, by the time you get, you got to take into account, if you're fresh into this, you got to get chargers, you got to get
yep.
all of this stuff. it's okay. DJI's battery pricing can be difficult to swallow at times, but what you're getting for that is safety. There's a reason that you know that more than anyone, having seen some of the images you posted in the past with the BatSafe box, and you had a close call there,
Well,
didn't you?
and that's the thing is like I could walk away. The other underrated feature of this is how fast it does seem to charge. It's what
Okay.
2400 milliamp 6S, and it's been brought to the attention these are lithium ion, not lipo, so different than the other build. So it flies for a while. It still has good punch. Like somebody asked me, can it dive? Can you dive down a cliff? And absolutely, you can dive. It can pull out of a dive, no problem. Like I don't feel like even with that, it's limited. But it is nice, like traveling. I didn't have to bring a crazy charger. You know what charger I brought?
No.
I brought my Mavic 3 charger, and I brought the adapter because this has an adapter where you can connect 4 of these batteries. And I just slipped it in the side of my bag, and I brought my Mini 3. And I was able to charge my Mini 3 batteries and these batteries with the same charger. And I'm just like, this is great. This makes traveling easier.
It is nice. They've done a lot on that over the last few years. We
really
saw
have.
it first when they started moving over to the USB-C and because it used to be horrendous. Every drone was a new battery, but every drone was a new charger. And it wasn't just about the battery, it was the charger as well. Whereas now you can just cross between them all quite nicely. Yeah. It is interesting, the battery chemistry change. I don't know. Have you felt it sag at all as time goes on? Have you felt it lose a bit of grunt?
What it does is as it gets to the end of the battery, it limits your throttle output.
Okay.
So about the 30% mark, it will start limiting your throttle output. So that's when typically you need to bring it back in. Now at that point at 30%, if I'm in manual flight and I am just beating on it, really beating on it, I've already achieved about 11 minutes of flight. And I don't think anybody understands being under the goggles for 11 minutes is a long time. 11 minutes is a long time. The other thing to keep in mind is, unfortunately, the Avada splits files. Every 4 minutes, it's splitting files. So you're not getting one continuous take. So you got all these file splits, which is really annoying because if you're going to do one take videos, you have to be mindful of that, because one thing I did notice is when I run it through gyro flow, the clip wouldn't match up to the other end of the clip.
Oh, right. Okay.
I noticed that twice, and I noticed that in that walkthrough video of that house I did, the clips weren't lining up. Now, I don't know if firmware will fix that. I haven't updated to the latest firmware yet. I'm going to update everything to the new firmware today, but I just know that it hasn't been working like it should, but that could be firmware related though.
Yeah, and that there's always tweaks and bits, and actually it's funny. It feels quite a complete launch as well, and this is all sounding quite positive actually. But I had a look at everything I've seen. I'm not seeing anything dramatically missing. You know what I mean? Like take the Mavic 3. I think we all, if we look at the Mavic 3,
I think our expectations with the Mavic 3, our expectations were higher, and then it didn't just it didn't hit. It didn't hit the same because the expectations were high. I think because the FPV drone sucked so bad, it sucks so bad. We were down here. So now they bring this out and it's like, oh, well, they did this. Oh, they did this.
It only had to be not that. That's all it had to be was not
so
that.
it was just like, it was, it was one of those things. But I think, there's a lot of complaints and for the FPV guys looking at this that are like, you know what, 11 minutes of battery, that's really good for a Cinewhoop. And then you've got on the other hand, you've got the Mavic guys that are like, oh, it only flies for 11 minutes. That's terrible.
Yeah.
So you got two sides of the fence. I think the battery life is actually really good for what this is and how big this is. Those are all factors you have to keep in mind. And honestly, if you're literally under the goggles any longer than 10 minutes, like you're a sick person. You're sick.
I think 20 minutes is way too long on a Mavic. You get bored. You get cold and bored in winter. You get bored in summer. Unless you've got a reason to fly for 20 minutes and you're filming, you know what I mean? Flying a Mavic for a hobby for 20 minutes, it's boring.
I will tell you, though, that the fans that are in here to help, they don't work very well. I was getting bad
the anti-fog.
I was getting bad fogging the other day.
I noticed they're on the side, aren't they? The vents are either side. I'm guessing that's where the airflow is coming out. I didn't see it anywhere else.
I didn't feel anything, though. Like when I put my hand over it, I was like, man, I'm not really feeling it. I do like that it has a proximity sensor, though, to keep the screens from burning in. I really do like the proximity sensor. I think that is pretty awesome. I mean, they did make a lot of thoughtful changes, which I think the vast majority of people, if they look at it from a granular level, they'll like. And again, end of the day, a new release, everybody's like, they're skeptical, right? Because a lot of people get this shit for free. I went out like right after this shit went live. I was like, fuck it, I'm buying another one. And I bought another one because I want a spare, but I like it. So I want, and I want its skin in the game. I want it to have some sort of like emotional attachment, financial attachment to this beyond that DJI just says, oh, here you go.
Yeah, and it's been an interesting launch because I also watch the launches from a KOL and thing point of view because I always find that side of it quite interesting. And, I was talking to you about this earlier, whereas the numbers weren't great in the first hour or two, not for anyone, and then it picked up from there. And what I always find interesting is, DJI tends to seed their products now to a certain market. You're not in that, you're very much a drone
I feel like I'm
creator.
a hybrid. Yeah, I'm a hybrid market.
Yeah, but you're very much a drone and creator in the drone space is what I would class you as, not a product reviewer.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? That's
no.
where I would a creator in the drone space.
We're not going to create a one and done. The thing about it is a lot like the bigger channels, like they may get a bigger pop. They get like 30, 40,000 views, but they're these one and done creators where they're going to review this one time. And you may never see another view from them again. But I get it. Again, once again, these people this is their business. Like they are career content creators that are just like this, the YouTube thing. This doesn't make, I mean, I make money, but it's not like it makes enough to pay the electric bill here and keep the lights on. But that's about it. Like that's not my goal.
You're telling me you haven't bought your Lamborghini yet?
No Lamborghini. No Lamborghini. I got
honestly.
Although I may spend that in fuel for the Jeep eventually, but
it's this is the funny thing. And what's been quite interesting is in the actual FPV space for this release, there's been very few. We had Nick, there was the Thing had access to it as well over in South Korea, and one or two others.
MCK
had it, and a few others, and it hasn't heavily been promoted in the FPV space. Now, DJI don't really talk to me, so I'm not expecting my side of things. However, for that side, I was quite interesting. Bardwell and others weren't involved,
did it seem weird? Like he didn't get his hands on it. Do you think it was because they didn't like his take for the original one, which I thought his take of the original one was pretty spot on? And I mean, but that doesn't make sense either, because I'm not going to lie. I railed the living shit out of that until I made a GoPro mount to where I can fly it. And I'm like, oh, fuck, I made it. It's usable now that I can mount the GoPro to it. And then I was like, okay. And then they started tuning it. And then there's prop adapters for it. So I'm like, okay, now I have prop adapters. Now I have a GoPro. I'm somewhat happy at this point.
Yeah.
I'm a fickle person. I'm fickled.
Yeah, look, Ken, you're an honest person, as I think I try to be, and many others, and JB is another. I don't know with JB. I think they made a mistake. Genuinely, I think it was a mistake.
I would have loved to see his thoughts.
Face.
His thoughts. I would have loved to see his thoughts on that.
I don't know whether it's a complete miss. The problem with DJI is this: you're generally dealing with different people, or you're dealing with the same people. And one person, there's a lot of people come and go with DJI. Yeah. One rep was the reps I dealt with when I used to do stuff are no longer there, and that's why I don't really have any contacts through the door these days. So they can be fickle. I wouldn't have thought him, because he ripped the arm off the first one they sent him. Yeah, I don't think they did.
That's the other thing. They didn't send out, like, I didn't get 2 units. I know when the FPV drone first launched, they were sending influencers. Yeah. They got 2 units. They got one set of goggles, one controller, 2 units.
They knew there was potentially going to it was going to happen. So I don't know. And it is interesting they haven't marketed it for the FPV space. I guess JB will have access today or tomorrow. Rotor Riot or a dealer, you would expect Rotor Riot. Riot clearly have it. That's going to happen. We'll have JB's thoughts. What the rest of us have to say on it probably won't change anything. I think, coming into this now and making a review isn't going to, YouTube, you don't do this for money, but you have to be realistic on, okay, going out and making another review isn't going to help anything. Everything that has to be said has been said in the first 24 to 48 hours. Genuinely, you want to know everything about this drone? Watch Ken's channel. There you go. It is that simple, because you pretty much covered everything I needed to know in the first day. 4 videos. I think was it 3 or 4K?
Yes, it's for, you know, I wasn't going to
4,
release,
yeah.
I wasn't going to release the V2 goggles, but I kept getting questions. Can you use it? How is it with the V2 goggles? What's the quality like? And the reality is there's no difference between the V2 goggles and the new, they actually call these, the code name for this is Vision. These are the Vision goggles. So I call them the Vision goggles because I think Goggle 2 is a terrible name. So there's no difference as far as like the quality back to the RC. Now the screen, obviously having OLED displays does make it easier to discern like objects, like, you know, branches, things like that. It does make it easier, but like, you know, I would say like if you want to save a lot of money, or if you already have the V2 goggles, rock the V2 goggles because again, it's going to be forwards compatible. Plus it's backwards compatible. The V2 FPV goggles are the best goggles you can buy right now because they are a jack of all trades, and nobody knew it at the time but if there's new FPV air units, that they are going to be forwards compatible.
Yeah, it did, and that's the good thing with it. You know, the V2 is a good place to be, and it was interesting to see, and I think it's been a successful launch. I think they'll be okay with it. I think it'll be a good product. I think we're going to see more FP. There's a lot of people running out and buying it today. I've spoken to a lot of people who are like, "Oh, I want this. I really want this." And that's from the FPV space as well.
And you know what? I think when people buy this and they fly it for the first time, whether they're experienced or a veteran pilot, you know, in the FPV space, you know, whether they're somebody who's just starting out or not, I can't explain it, but even in sport mode, I felt I thought the sport mode was complete trash on the FPV drone. But to be fair, the reason why sport mode is trash is because the FPV drone, as it's hovering, is like this. So it's like it naturally, and then it's just a lot of bobble. But the cool thing about sport mode on this is how sport mode is. It never changes its pitch, really. It stays really relatively the same way. So it's very linear in its.
Yeah.
And it just feels like I said, you can get some really cool shots with it. And like I said, I'm pretty happy. There's a lot of haters. Like, here's the reality. Like, I don't identify as a FPV pilot. I don't identify as a GPS pilot. I identify as an asshole. And I don't like the vast majority of views in the FPV space because I feel like their views are too narrow. There's not enough of optimism, and there's way too many gatekeepers in the FPV realm that don't want to let people in easily because they feel that the road they traveled up was the hardest road, and they feel that everybody has to walk up that same path. Fuck you. I'm going to build a road and I'm going to drive up that road as easy as possible because in this world, you have a very, very short time. And there's no sense on doing something hard just because the person before you did it equally as hard. Fuck that. I'm going to do things easy. I've always been a big fan of work smarter, not harder. And I will live and die by that 100%. So if this makes life easier, do it. Who cares? It doesn't make you any less of a pilot. At the end of the day, you have more free time because you're not building shit. You have a lot more fun more instantly than somebody else. And you know, who gives a shit? Who gives a shit? Like, who are you trying to impress? Like forum pilots? Fuck forum pilots.
Yeah, and that's, as you say, you will. At the end of the day, what counts is what you do with it. If you're a professional guy and you're delivering content and you're making money, that's success. Success is doing what you want to set out to achieve. That is what success is. It's that simple. It really is.
Precisely. I mean, you know, the other thing I want to address too is because a lot of people think that a lot of these people were paid by DJI. I can tell you 100%. Yeah, they provided the drone, but I don't count that as payment. If I go to my electric company and say, hey, I'm going to give you an Avata to keep my lights on for this month. Is that cool? Are we good? They're going to tell me to go fuck myself because they don't accept this as a form of payment. So this does not cut it. Like, I don't give a shit if people do that. Like, no, that doesn't.
No, there's a very small number that are paid. Okay, I think you have the very big channels.
I think the very big channels, they got brand deals with these people. Like, you don't fly. Let me put it this way. Matty Hapoya, prime example. I don't know if that was Iceland, Sweden, wherever the fuck those beautiful waterfalls were. You don't spend your own money to go halfway around the country to film a video like that. That is 100% a freaking brand deal. That's the difference. I like him. I think the content's beautiful. But that's 100% a brand deal. And I don't hate him for that. But I just recognize what it is.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's what you have to look at when it's actually a term I've often used is if the guy gets on a plane to do the review, he's probably not paid for that, or it's being, usually the way these things work in my experience is you pitch an idea, they accept it, you go do it, they give you a bag of cash, and it costs what it costs, and you make whatever you make, and that's how it works. And it's a business deal, and it is a transaction at the end of the day. It's a transaction, and no one should be upset with people for doing that. Where I sometimes struggle is when you have that fine line of it's clearly should be labeled sponsored content.
Correct.
Yet,
correct.
Take your product. You received it for free. That isn't sponsored content.
Correct.
That is, you were provided a review sample.
They didn't tell me what I could or couldn't say.
Nope.
I mean, they give you an outline. They say they want certain things in the description, which everything they want I would put in there anyways because that's just good algorithm. But I basically, my rep was like, here's, sort of the outline of what we want you to say. But he goes, knowing you, I know it's not going to go like that. And I said, yep, pretty much. I said, pretty much. It was like, once it was in my hand, I'm like, all right, here we go. Buckle up.
Yeah. So, well, it's funny. You did the review of that drone, which I was offered as well. And I looked at it. What was it? The
Exodrone.
The Exodrone. And I looked at it and thought, and then I saw the conditions, and I know they sent them to you after, didn't they? They shipped the product, or
well, I knew the conditions. I knew what the conditions were, but when I got that motherfucker on this show, I was not going to back off of him at all, And then to find out that he sold the company how he did, like that, that sent me sailing. I tried giving him the benefit. I try to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. All the time, like even people that don't like me or like me, I try to always give them the benefit of the doubt at least one time. But you get comments and stuff, and the thing is, a lot of people will find me on Facebook and they'll add me to my personal Facebook page. And where I draw the line of niceness is if I put something on my personal Facebook page that is private for my friends only on my personal Facebook page, not my original Dobo page or anything else. Don't tell me what I can say, because I say a lot of things that are probably borderline inappropriate. But that is me, and I don't make apologies. So I had somebody.
That's your personal space, isn't it?
Yeah, that's my personal space. So I had somebody, message me yesterday about something I said, and basically I was just like, "Fuck you, dude." At the end of the day, fuck you. You don't like it, see yourself out. Like it's just that simple. Fuck you. I don't care. You don't like it.
And that's funny. It's funny you say that. I don't have a Facebook presence for the channel at all. I don't bother. I can't be bothered. I have my personal one, which is my family.
It's a shit show. It's a shit show.
Yeah.
I don't recommend it.
But that's why I'm not a successful YouTuber like you can.
I'm not successful. I'm just navigating the between the beacons, I guess. I don't. I mean, but I think this release was pretty polarizing across the board. Seeing the comments, you have a lot of perplexing people in the groups, and people. Honestly, here's the thing. Here's what I think. If everybody was given one of these, everybody would be happy. Everybody would be fucking outstandingly happy. Yes, people are mad there's not a controller there. Hey, welcome to FPV. You got to buy shit separate. Welcome to FPV. A la carte was something that I had to learn. That was one of the biggest reasons why I didn't get into this hobby, because I had to figure out a receiver. I had to get goggles. Oh, and then I needed to learn about battery charging. Oh, and then you throw 3D printing into the mix. Not necessary, but a wonderful add-on. And it's like, holy shit, I'm out a lot of money. So
it's not a cheap hobby. It never has been. FPV has been a hobby. You can spend $1,700 and burn the ESC on the first flight.
Exactly. It's cheaper to be married.
2 motors and an ESP. That's $300 gone.
I mean, it's cheaper being married than it is to be in the hobby of FPV. Like, I rather find at least a trophy wife, because that would still cost me less money over a 10-year span than this. 100%. So
it's a great hobby, but as you say, it isn't one you can go into when you're looking at cost, and that's the funny thing with it.
No,
as you say, I think it's definitely been a polarizing release. I think there's nothing bad here. There's frustration. There is people sitting here with wanting to give DJI money, and that's probably where the biggest frustration is on the goggles. We want to give you $700 for those goggles. Please make them compatible. I don't think it'll happen myself. I have put a video out on it, but the only reason I've done that.
Like, think about DJI. Why wouldn't they want to sell these to the OG? They know people would buy this, and they know they would make a lot of money. But it's not the fact that they don't want to, it's the fact that they can't, because the tech to make these connect to that older transmission system, I don't think exists in these goggles. The only way we're
Yeah.
going to know is if somebody tears these down and compares the internals and the PCB boards to,
Yeah.
let's say, a V2 goggle or a V1
Won't
goggle.
be long.
Exactly. So, and I already know you're going to be tearing it down and dissecting that from the inside. So it's going to make, it'll make sense.
That's the thing. Yeah, you know, I put a video out yesterday saying to people to feedback, and the only reason I've done that is really simple. DJI asked. If you're going to ask, I'm going to do it.
Right.
It's like opening the door. If they gave the statement to Rotor Riot that says we'll do it on community feedback. There you go. I'm gonna give you that community feedback. If they hadn't have said nothing, it wouldn't have been able to do anything, and we'd have moved on.
Well,
so we're going to give them a bit of crap for that.
And so I asked about new air units. So I asked about
Yeah.
new air units, and the cryptic response was they want to see the feedback from the community.
Yeah.
That was the
And
cryptic.
it's all
That was the
interesting.
cryptic response.
Yeah.
So I believe that in that sense, but I think we're going to get new air units. The reality is, if you want
Yeah.
something that is going, if you want to make a purchase in the tech space that I feel like it would be future proof to a certain extent, buy yourself a camera. Cameras are pretty much what I would say is the most future proof thing you can purchase, because lenses are always updating and changing. You can always keep the body. You don't have to have the latest and greatest. But if you're getting into a hobby like this, a digital space that is relatively new, expect these growing pains to happen. Expect them to make things that are going to be obsolete. This is par for the course. Now you can say, oh, this is just me fanboying out to DJI. That's not the case. I have railed them pretty much harder than anybody else in the same space. And pin me up to one of my peers, and I promise you, I've probably hit them harder than almost anybody throughout the years.
Oh yeah. You know, I was watching your FPV drone videos when it was like, oh god, yeah, Ken's fallen out of love with it. You know, you mean you felt the pain of everything it brought at that worst point. You know, you get used to it, and then you think everything about this is just a pain in the ass. That was the problem with it. The camera was shite.
It was a pain in the ass, but then I started figuring it's like, okay, you can have two options. You can either keep bitching about the lemons you were dealt, or you can start making lemonade.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm going to start developing ways to make it better so I can make it usable. Because I bought that. It was like 900 something bucks or whatever the whole package was. I think I paid 1,100 bucks. So I'm like, shit, I'm not going to be able to sell this. I don't sell them. I keep them usually. And I was just like, I have to figure out a way to make salvageable. Salvageable would be the word that I would use. So, but yeah, I think like I said, I think the Avata is going to make a lot of people really happy. I think as people fly it, they're going to come back and think to the statement. They're going to say, holy shit, he was right. It is a different experience. It's an enjoyable experience. And it's something I think a lot of people can really grow with.
One thing that did surprise me was I was shocked it had acro mode. I wasn't expecting.
I don't know where that rumor came from. Why would they put out a Cinewhoop without, you knew it, I don't know where that rumor came from. The first thing I did was I looked at everything and I said, oh, it's got manual, put it in manual. And I was like, all right, this thing flies perfect, and it's very, like I said, it's very, very stable in manual. And, you saw with Nurk's flight, it looked absolutely flawless. I mean, everybody's flights, I think, look flawless. And I think, this is one of the first products that people are going to be really, really happy with. I don't think you'll have a lot of buyer's remorse from this. And again, I know that the hardcore FPV guys are like, fuck DJI, but I'm just not those type
The thing
of
is, though,
people.
with the Cinewhoop, its limits. That's the thing. It's,
Right.
as you said earlier, you can't go up to 400 foot. That's not what it's designed to do.
Correct.
You can't do, my complaint on the FPV drone, actually, and I said it was the best way to get into FPV. My review of the FPV drone, my comment was, I feel it's the best way to get into FPV. However, I also feel you'll get bored of it very quick because you'll transition through the modes quickly. You'll get used to acro mode, and then you'll rip an arm off and have to spend it back to DJI. And that was the problem. They have solved the biggest problem here, which was damaging the product. And they've solved it by making it a Cinewhoop with drone guards and making the most important bits available. I'd like to see motors. I do think we're going to need motors. That's good enough crash.
Yeah, you're going to need motors. That's definitely a weird oddity on these because looking at it, you can't really see the air unit. So there is a couple of tamper-proof screws. So like, it looks like you can crash this. You can replace the ducts, and you won't void your warranty if you replace the ducts. You can replace this top camera, but if you take the battery out and you look at this left side screw here, like it's hard to see here, but there's a screw here and they have a tamper-proof covering. So if you remove that little tamper-proof covering, that actually, this right here is what mounts the air unit ESC to the top, to the to the unit somehow. I don't know. There must be another plate. It looks like there's another plate. So the airframe actually begins here. And then the camera plate, this top rail guard, mounts to the airframe itself. So it's actually three pieces essentially. So duck guard, camera, or the top guard here, and then you have your airframe. So it's three pieces essentially. So one of those pieces is where, like I said, that the motors mount. Now they may sell it where you buy the airframe, you just get the airframe, and it's a whole thing. So but they did learn from their mistakes, because I felt like the FPV drone had taking apart the FPV drone was like fucking trying to reassemble R2D2. I mean, holy
and just
shit.
Some of the damage.
I mean,
I remember I've never seen drones with so much horrific damage than on the FPV drone.
I've never seen it.
4 legs.
The carnage.
Destroyed.
The carnage.
Yeah.
I mean, it was insane. I mean, the FPV drone, when I broke it, I was like, all right, well, grab another one. Because you don't, you send it off to DJI. It's $400 to repair it. But it's like, I mean, I would take screws off and I would start doing good, Ian. I'm like, all right, I'm keeping this dismantlement organized. Nope. I'd get halfway through and it's just, completely destroyed. So, it's very interesting. But like I said, I'm very happy. I'm looking forward to watching more people get this in their hands. People that don't fly FPV. I like watching their people. I love seeing their reaction for the first time they get behind the goggles and they have a good experience. Now we are going to see a shit ton of people lose this though, because again, they have the perception that you can fly this for this is not a Mavic. And as soon as the wind takes this thing, holy shit, man, watch out.
Yeah, it's going to be the same as the Mini 3, the Mini 2s, where we saw people go, I'm going to put it up, 200 meters, and I'm going to fly it out 4 kilometers and not take into account the wind direction change, and suddenly, whoop,
you're gonna see it sailing, because I mean that happened to me. So we went to this place called Sharkfin Cove in California, and it's a really cool space. And there's like this cave that leads out into the water. Now, the problem with Sharkfin Cove is that it is very windy, and all that wind sort of pushes into this cove that is like sort of down on the beach level and creates a vortex. So I took off and the Avada was struggling. Now, to go underneath this cove, I had to be really, really low. And to get low, obviously I couldn't have high camera tilt, because then it's like, all right, then you're going to be impeding on the sand. And I will tell you that it didn't do well. It didn't like it.
No.
It was bobbling. Even with gyro flow, it was just bobbling all over the place. It was just unusable footage. And I felt like if I tried to do anything else in that particular location, that I probably would have sunk it into the water. No doubt.
Yeah. And we have seen one go, and we had that pre-release one that someone caught a wave. I don't know if you saw that video, that someone shared a video about 2 days before the launch. It was the Avata, and they caught a wave. They were a little bit close to the sea, and it was someone who had one for review, and a wave come up and it caught the front of it, and she was gone. It was instant.
But it does seem pretty resistant to water though. Like they did do a good job. I mean, it's very sealed. Like when you look at it, there's no open areas. So I would feel pretty good about flying this near a waterfall or something, you know, in a moister, a moist climate. I feel like this would probably be, it would probably be okay.
You wouldn't worry about spray and stuff.
I don't think so. After, like I said, one good thing that came from seeing Maddie's video, and again, I don't know how many units he has. My guess is if you're going to Iceland, you probably had 2 or 3 units, given the fact that you probably told them what you were going to do. So he probably had 2 or 3. My guess is it probably seems to be okay with the spray. I mean, he was pretty close to those waterfalls, and I mean that's a pretty moist environment if you ask me. So we'll have to see. But I think that's gonna wrap this up, guys. I'm just looking over the chat. I know there was a lot of questions. Hopefully, we answered a lot of the questions that you may have had. If you have questions, we'll take them now. We're actively watching the chat. We're pretty engrossed in conversation. So go ahead, get your messages in now. As we are going to wrap it up here in the next 5 minutes. So wrapping it up. So I'm just scrolling up through the chat to catch any questions. I mean, most of the questions are, do these work with air units? No. I feel like I want to start off every video going forward. These don't work with the fucking air units. Next.
Did you know? Well, the video I put out yesterday about making a bit of noise, I actually started with, these do not work. Right. Let me keep this as clear as possible. No.
These do not work. They don't bind.
They don't work
Our
with the
bad.
current
Appreciate
DJI
you, man.
drones. And for any, I've seen a question. They do not work with any other drone other than the Avata right now.
Correct.
But that is potentially going to change. The belief is Mini 3, Mavic 3. Not confirmed, may never happen, but that is what we think. Does the V2 goggles have head tracking? No.
The V2 goggles do not have head tracking. These goggles, the Vision goggles do, but it does not function in manual mode. It only functions in normal and sport, I believe.
This is with their naming is horrendous, isn't it? The DJI goggles V2 don't, but the DJI goggles 2 do. Why that name?
Why would you? Who? I want. That must have been a late night. Somebody lost a bet there. Somebody lost.
Yeah.
Somebody lost a bet.
Literally, the difference is FPV.
Petition. What is this Petition? What is this?
That is that petition. A petition has been put up about feeding back to DJI.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Guys, take your entitled asses somewhere else. You don't petition a company over a product. That's like me asking Microsoft to bring back fucking Windows 95. That ship sailed, homie. That ship sailed. Okay? It's been 3 years. Technology moves at a light speed. You either get with it or get out. Get with it or get out. Unbelievable. A petition.
How does it handle a dive with a GoPro? You're the man for that, Ken.
I probably, maybe a Bones, it would probably be okay. Again, you're pushing it. You're pushing it because as you start really trying to come out of that dive, it's going to be a little harder. Without a GoPro, I can tell you it does fine. With a GoPro, I don't know. I don't think I would recommend diving with the GoPro just to be. Yeah. Will you be selling the TPU ducks on and putting them out on Thingiverse? Okay, so first, when I spend time doing these, it takes me a long time to do these. I don't put files out on Thingiverse. Much like DJI, I'm in business to being business. Okay, these are for sale. You can buy them. I'm not going to put them out on Thingiverse. If you're challenged enough and you want to try to design a set of ducks for this, have at it. But we have taken the time and effort to create them, so no, they're not going on DJI, and that's not me being an asshole. That's just me being a smart business person. Yes, the prop guards are for sale. We priced them out pretty cheap. It's $19 for the set, so it's $19 for the set. They clip on, no tools, and hopefully that will save anybody that is going to potentially crash this. If you hit something hard enough, that should take a brunt force of the impact. It is made out of a different material than the ducks. It is made out of what we call TPU. So it's because it's TPU, you should just bounce right off of whatever it is that you're hitting. Mileage may vary. You're so much nicer on Facebook. Thank you, Gary. I really appreciate that. Gary and I had a very warm, heartfelt conversation yesterday on Facebook in this group. So, and it was actually, I understand his argument about the RC not being included. It's a weird thing, but again, I came from the FPV drone, so I just grabbed my controller.
Yeah.
And again, that's, I think, that target audience that they were looking for. But I don't think they also anticipated so many people sold their controllers after they crashed the FPV drone and never fixed it.
It's someone asked, would it be great for real estate? I think that's
would be great to have my products in the EU. We are actually shipping to Britain. I'm trying to actually work on EU shipping partners to make shipping cheaper, because one of the biggest problems right now is shipping from the US is just a absolute disaster.
It's the same the other way. It's exactly the same.
I don't know what it is, but like coming into the US is the same way. It's very, very expensive.
I was looking at some merch on the channel, and it's just not viable. It just is not viable. Is
the Avata compatible with the big black DJI controller? No, totally different transmission signal. I wish. I love that controller. I wish, but I do like the smaller controller. But no, it's not available. Sorry. Gary Hamilton says, much more respect, son. Thanks. Anytime, Mr. Hamilton. Anytime. So sometimes when you type messages out and you type in Facebook can be so like cold, like when you type things.
Yeah.
Any hope for HDMI in on the new goggles? I I don't see that happening because it seems like they want to control these out. But I will tell you, there's an interesting option where you can wirelessly display images into the goggles.
Yeah.
So there may be something like that in the future, but who knows? Maybe they make a dongle or something that can output HDMI. It's tough to say. I think it's in the early stages and they're still feeling that information out. But then that also would impede on the fact that new transmission they have. I don't know. There's too many things they're doing.
DJI doesn't really have interest in you pumping anything else in it. I think they're beginning to look at the VR world a little bit. And there are some reasons I'm saying that, because there's some thought that there might be another set of goggles towards the end of the year, which is a higher end goggle. And
that would be interesting.
The whole metaverse thing.
Oh yeah.
DJI is looking for different areas to move into.
I own property in the metaverse. I own property. Yeah.
Nice.
I own a strip club in the metaverse, and it's a male review. And I have a hot dog stand. So I've got some property in the metaverse. We're
I've not even looked.
Hey,
so
listen, man, it's like Monopoly. Let me get this to her. It's original. It's super easy. It's this very original name. It's originaldobostore.com. That's where you can get the prints. And I don't know why I tagged my name, but it's originaldobostore.com. Let's see. I saw a very interesting question. Will this drone do everything the DJI FPV does? I'm a 107 pilot, 1,000+ hours flying. I think this will give you more bang for your buck, NGA outdoors, than the FPV drone would. And I think you would have a much more usable experience for professional work, especially if you're 107 and you're looking to incorporate this somehow into some client videos. This is a lot more useful. While you cannot fly this over people directly due to its weight, you can fly in close proximity. Again, the FAA doesn't say anything like once you're indoors, if you want to fly over somebody indoors, you can do that because they do not govern that airspace indoors as long as there's a covered roof in whatever area you are flying. So yeah, you can absolutely. I think this is the better bang for the buck. Can I buy an RC from you, mates?
I think it was your friend that had all the RCs.
Yeah, he does. I think, Zach has the RCs. I would message Zach at DroneWorks. Just message the DroneWorks page and we can set it up and get you an RC. I think he's got him out there. I don't know what the shipping to the UK is, so be mindful of that it's an absolute shit show shipping from the US right now.
There is some stock at dealers in the UK. Hobby RC do have it. I do know that if someone wants
Hobby RC, that may be a better move if it's if you're buying, because then you don't gotta pay imports. If it's UK. Let's see. Yeah, I have the camera mount. The camera mount's the bad idea mount. It's not a bad idea. It's just, it's not necessary. Like,
I did love the name.
I could tell it's a bad idea and people will still buy it because it's, it works. And we made it to where it clips on very tightly and it doesn't block the GPS. So that was the other thing too, is I saw there was mounts that were blocking the GPS, which I thought that was a bad idea. So we didn't want to back that. So, any action mounts for the Avata? Yes, I have an action mount. It's called the Bad Idea mount. That is also on www.originaldobostore.com. Give Zach a call at DroneWorks. He's got what you need, man. He'll get you hooked up. So I don't know if anyone answered this, but if there is, what's the go-to goggles for the Air 2S? The problem with that is you have to have a smart controller so you can utilize HDMI if you're going to use goggles. Somebody just said the remotes are sold out at HRC. That sucks, man. I knew that was going to be a panic rush. It's going to be a panic rush.
They were there 3 hours ago, though that shows how they've shifted.
I saw a guy selling the RC on eBay for $500, Ian. $500 for this. I want to find that guy and kick him in the nuts.
But he's lost the drone, right?
Yeah.
Sold the goggles, right?
Sold the goggles.
And then he's had this remote in the corner for months.
I mean, he's going for max value. He's going for, that's a value bet if we were playing poker right there. I swear to Christ.
At least if he is a guy who's lost his drone and he gets $500, I hope he's at least covered his costs. I can live with that.
There's 1,700 signatures on the petition. 17 times 700 is 1.9 million. 1.9 million is a drop in the bucket for DJI. It's a drop in the bucket. You're also petitioning against something that they potentially cannot change because it has nothing to do with the software flip. It likely has to do with the hardware inside of these goggles versus the hardware that is in the V1s. You guys are bitching about something that likely cannot be changed. I'm sorry. It's just an asinine thing to even do. if you want thin goggles, you want super small goggles, go buy the fucking Avatar system. Go fly fucking walk snail shit if that's what you want. I mean, literally, I don't feel bad for people that are petitioning. I don't feel bad for you because this is evolution. This is evolution. You either shit or get off the pot.
I think the petition has been more DJI asked for feedback, so people are going to give it, and I think that's where the stance is, if you know what I mean. Because Philip Bloom did this on the A2S. I don't know if you know this. You've heard of Philip Bloom, have you? Yeah, Philip Bloom did this with tripod mode on the A2S, and he put a petition together, and a similar situation, and DJI did.
But
respond.
I think that is something they can do that with software.
Yes,
that's software related. But I'm telling you, with this, something is removed to make this size. Otherwise, why not just allow it? Why not tell us that it could?
I think it's a lot of software work. I think it's a lot of cost. I think it's going to take cost. Yeah.
We asked, and we got a resounding no. Like, it wasn't even like, there wasn't even a glimmer of hope. I mean, I was sort of like, oh, okay, okay. So that sucks when they do that. But I think they drew the line in the sand for a lot of reasons. And I think we'll find those out as new products launch. And as obviously if the new air units launch, I think we'll find out as to why it's like that.
It's funny on these remotes, right? People are talking, you can't get them. Yesterday there was good availability. It's taken like 24 hours.
Sure.
But this wave has now hit and everyone's gone, I need that remote, and swallowed them up everywhere.
Right. And everybody's fine. I haven't found it anywhere. Even on Amazon, completely gone on Amazon. It's out of stock everywhere. Like I said, I have some in stock because people were crashing. It's funny how one of their drones created availability for another of their drones. So, it's only because I have what had happened is why we have stock available. So,
someone asked on the A2S about goggles. It's unlikely now.
Yeah,
it's too far down.
It's too far down the water.
Yeah, to be honest, we must be around the corner from the A3. We can't be a million.
I would say so. That's going to really true up and hopefully get rid of those batteries, because the other thing is the batteries on the Air 2 is a problem.
Yeah.
What's with the 4x3 4K? So you can film in. So let's be clear. The Avata has 4x3. It has 4x3. You can film in 4x3 on the Avata. But you cannot use gyro flow with 4x3 on the Avata. There is no gyro information in the 4x3 aspect ratio. So you can use standard stabilization. So you can film 4x3 and film in the standard aspect ratio, or the standard stabilization, but you cannot film 4x3 and use gyro flow. That was a mouthful. So gyro flow only works wide, EIS off. That is the only way it works.
That's the only way it works.
That only way it works. There's no gyro information, because I looked. There's no gyro information in any of those packets unless it's in that mode. So I don't know why it has to be like that. That doesn't make sense. But I mean, it's just, you just deal with it, I guess. So insulate your GPS wires with Faraday tape. Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. I haven't had any problems with it. That's what.
No, that's an Avatar issue, not Avata. One left on eBay. What we got? Will the smart controller? No, and it's unlikely to either.
Yeah, could you imagine? That would sell like crazy if they made it to where it could fly with that. Jesus.
I did notice on the DJI website for the RC Pro, it wasn't a hard no. It was, we will evaluate in the future, which is different to a hard no.
But again, I think that's where the RC Pro stands. You could do that, right? You could probably do that,
fit easily.
But again, when we're talking about V1 shit, like the V1 air units and whatnot, I think we're dealing with something entirely
could be interesting
different.
though, wouldn't it? RC Pro support would be very
RC
handy
Pro,
for
I think, would make this viable for a lot of people.
Yeah,
obviously not flying in manual, but flying in the sport mode and stuff, buzzing around and having that display there, that could be interesting. I will tell you that I tried out the new FPV mode.
Okay.
I tried out the new FPV mode on the RC Pro, where you can connect it to the goggles. Does not work on the Avata as of right now. Like, you can't output the video feed. At least it wasn't there.
No.
Well, Willie, I hate to break it to you, it doesn't fly. It doesn't work with anything else. And personally, I don't give a fuck what you need. So let me give you, like, this must be the first time here, but hi, I'm an asshole and you're the fuck out of here. Don't give a shit what the fuck you need, dude. Don't care.
I love it.
Gonna learn today. Yeah, so for newbies that never use goggles, that wear glasses, so I here's the other thing, like, if you have glasses, try the goggles with the diopter adjustments, because you'd be surprised, you may be able to dial it into your eyesight. I had a buddy of mine, had goggles, he put them on, and he was able to dial them in without his goggle, or without his glasses on, and he was like, wow, this is actually really nice. So try it like that first before it's hard to fly it with glasses. We'll put it that way.
It's a shame it was all in the negatives, not in the pluses. There has been some talk whether they're going to do something on that, because it only goes +2, doesn't it? Which is, there are some people who are going to want that. But
yeah. I like I said, I think, with the pressure there, I think here's what I think what will happen out of that petition that they did sign. I don't think they'll get what they want, but I think they'll get an answer.
Yeah. I think that's probably what
I think they will get confirmation as to why it won't work, which I think they should just put it out there, ahead of time. Because you're going to create more of a PR disaster if you let it linger and people buy it accidentally. Because you're going to have people that, when those goggles become available, they're going to try to buy it in hopes that it will work with their older air units. Put out a statement as to why it won't, or if you will, just clear the air.
Yeah, and they've created ambiguity now, because they said, we have the Road Riot statement, then we've got that post, which is a DJI comment, and we know to ignore that. Those who know to go, we know. But there are people who will now go, well, it wasn't no there, and now we've got this statement, it must be happening. They have once again created the situation where we have this ambiguity around what's going to happen. Should just go, it is or it isn't. End of.
Yeah, the problem is we have this gray area with the answer.
Yeah.
And, I just think it's really stupid and silly. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to reword my question to my rep. I'm going to reword it and just see what answer is provided. Because there's no harm in asking again, because I got a clear cut no the first time, but I want to reword it.
Yeah,
in a way that I can get I'm basically not baiting a response, but I'm wanting specifics, I guess, because I think people that are representing this product, you ask us to represent a product, you ask us to review a product and fly a product, and then when you get pushback, we're the ones that are on the brunt side of answering those questions. So it just would be a lot easier if we had all the facts.
And you can't win, and this is the problem. I've been where you are, where you're doing a launch, and you ask a question and you're told something, and that turns out to be completely different to what they've A, told someone else, or B, flipped the situation 24 hours later. And we've all been there, and that's the frustration at times, isn't it?
Correct. And I don't think that, I just don't think it's capable of doing it, but that's what I want to hear them say. I just want to hear them say it. Of why it's not capable.
I always run along the anything is capable. It comes down to the amount of work, effort, and cost and viability. Correct. At the end of the day, DJI is a business. So if it's going to take a guy to write software for 3 months in a basement, someone's got to pay for that.
Correct.
That isn't.
They're going to charge a premium on that.
Yeah, and so what you have to decide is, okay, yes, there might be 400, 1,000, 2,000 FPV users going, we want to buy the product. But the time you take the margins in, and DJI's margins are huge, yet by the time you take the margins in, this still may not be viable when that person's time may have been better suited on what they want to do next. Because it's not like there's 1,000 people sitting there doing nothing.
No.
If you take a developer to do that, you could sit there and say, well, he isn't doing something else, which may be the next Mavic, the Mavic 3 Plus, which is rumored, whatever. These are people who have a job to do. So you only have a finite amount of resource to allocate in any business. Doesn't matter how big you are.
Exactly. Exactly. I just
and I do have a concern, actually. If they do it, is what shit show it could end up being. Because if they do it and rush it, that's going to be a complete shit show.
And think about the issues that we had when the V2 goggles came out with that firmware, and people were having blackouts. You know, so there could be something that they've done internally and tested, and they're like, okay, this is really not stable with the older product. The bandwidth isn't on par with one another. That could be problematic. That could be problematic.
If it's rushed, it could be problematic. You know, look, what you'd want is them to put the same amount of effort in they put into this. But let's be realistic. This product's probably been on a 12-month development cycle. Are we really expecting them to spend 8 months developing the software for an old system? So it isn't. We can ask, we can push, but at the end of the day, it will be what it will be.
But I think that my biggest problem with consumers now is they're so used to like doing that shit, right? And thinking that they're going to get their way. I mean, that doesn't always work. I mean, there's logical expectation and reason behind it. And, you know, for me, I always want somebody to have the best possible experience with the product, right?
Yeah.
You know, because it's that all mama knows best type of sentiment. I mean,
there's working and working for consumers as well. You know, I've seen, I can't remember what product it was. There was a product I beta tested and it could work with something. I can't remember what it was, but the experience was great as a beta tester, but you wouldn't have given it out to the real world. And people kicked off and said, and it's just like, yes, it can do it, but can it do it in such a way that a manufacturer can support it, warrant it, and not deal with the customer service kickback of it crashing every 5 minutes or something like that, you know?
But so it's like if they are going to release new air units, but yet this becomes backwards compatible. Here's the other side of this. If it becomes backwards compatible, then there's less of a reason for people to purchase the new air units because, you know what I'm saying? So then so it's like, that's the one major reason why I can see them not be, let's just say, even if it was capable, that would be the one reason why they don't make it backwards compatible, because then it's less of a reason for somebody to purchase new air units.
And it won't be in the next 6 months because you're going to have a product manager who is sitting there responsible for this new air unit, who is job is to make this product launch and sell, and he is in no situation going to sit there and go, yeah, we'll give backwards compatibility tomorrow and take away a third of my sales. So you are right, there are many facets to a decision like this.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of moving components, but we'll have to wait until the dust settles. And I'm sure you know, the more people keep pushing this, they'll get an answer. May not be the answer they're looking for, but it'll be an answer nonetheless, and then they can just put it all to rest, and we can So that's, Michael Teixeira asked, did you do a range test? I mean, range test is subjective because I'm flying at 3 feet at about 1,700 feet in distance. So, I mean, range-wise, I have no doubt it's definitely better than the FPV drone. But again, that range is subjective because, again, I am flying at 3 feet at 1,700 feet in distance. So that's, you know, take that for what it is. I think range tests are just are honestly fucking stupid because it's very subjective to the area. It's very subjective to what that person is looking to do. And I fly with I have a purpose in mind when I'm flying something. You know, if I have a destination I'm trying to reach, then the range, you know, then I'll push it at that point.
Yeah, it's a Cinewhoop.
It's a Cinewhoop.
It flies beyond what you can see. That's more than you need.
Exactly. That's literally all you need. Alrighty, y'all. That's going to do it for this chat. Appreciate y'all stopping in. Questions, hopefully were answered. If they weren't, well, we will try to get to them again. So I will see you in the next video. Ian, thanks for coming on, man.
Ken, it was a pleasure, as always.
Stay original, everybody.
Maybe I'll just get out my head and focus on what I know's coming. Yeah. Cause I can't fall asleep at night without seeing my dreams. Delusionary reality, I'm somewhere in between. These voices in my head get loud and they keep telling me that I'm a fool for trusting in these wings. But maybe, baby, this what flying feels like. 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 Maybe all my exes just drinking themselves crazy tonight. Maybe I should call and say, told you I'd be right. Wondering how long it was before